Hello and welcome to Always Bored, Never Boring. Back in the summer, I reviewed Monster Hunter World Ancient Forest from Steamforged Games. It is a game that lives up to its name. It's big and bombastic, arriving in a box that was bigger than my first flat and loaded with miniatures big enough to scare the neighbourhood cats. It pits from 2 to 4 hunters, controlled by 1 to 4 players, against monstrous creatures. You can play standalone battles or a series of hunts strung into a simple campaign culminating in an all-or-nothing smackdown with a super-powered foe. And I really liked it. I thought there were elements of the game that didn't quite work. The storytelling hunt part felt a bit too much like bookkeeping, and there is a mechanism whereby hunters can accumulate scout flies, which was just a bit too nebulous to be engaging for me. But all was forgiven once the monsters hit the board, which is of course what the game is really all about. Fighting the monsters is an awesome puzzle, at the heart of which is a superb card-based combat system, where hunters balance powerful attacks with conserving their stamina, and where it's possible to string together a sequence of cards in combos that will leave even the largest enemies reeling. It's incredibly clever, relying more on skill than luck, and resulting in tense showdowns that will be memorable. As I enjoyed Ancient Forest, when I had the chance to get a review copy of Monster Hunter World Wildspire Waste, I jumped at the chance, and that's what we are going to be taking a look at today. Wildspire Waste isn't an expansion, it's a second core set, a different jumping on point for players interested in the game system. As such, I'm not going to be reviewing the gameplay in this video. I have already done a detailed gameplay review for Ancient Forest where I bang on for over 30 minutes, so I don't want to reiterate all of that. I will just link to that previous review in the video description below and recommend that if you want to learn more about the card-based combat or the campaign structure, you watch that video first. For this video, I thought I would answer 3 main questions. What do you get in the Wildspire Waste set? Is it the best way to get started with Monster Hunter World? And why would you consider buying it if you already own Ancient Forest? The format of both core sets is identical. You get 4 hunter miniatures and 4 monster miniatures, a board to fight over, a quest book to play through as you go on your hunts, a boatload of tokens, dice, stamina boards, character sheets, health dials, large reference cards detailing the different monsters and the possible upgrade paths for the hunters, and thick wedges of playing cards for the combat system, the new weapons you can forge, the behaviour of the monsters, the events that will occur during a fight, and much more. These core sets don't come cheap, with a recommended retail price of £130. But it's hard not to be wowed by the scale and scope, and harder still to feel shortchanged simply based on the materials provided. The big miniatures are the first thing you are going to take notice of when you open the box. After all, they fill up over 50% of the space. In the Wildspire Waste, you can face the Barroth. It looks a bit like a heavily scaled T-Rex, and at first I thought it was blind, but it does have some beady little eyes on the sides. It creeps me out a bit because it looks like it has teeth on the top of its head, and that makes me feel icky. The Barroth is known for making deadly charge attacks and trampling prey. The second monster is the smallest, but also my favourite in the set, the Puke Puke, which picks up scatternuts, coats them in venom, and then spits them at threats. He's got a big old sticky frog tongue and gives off Aztec vibes. I think you could probably have a lot of fun giving it a really bright colour scheme to make it look like something particularly venomous that has emerged from the rainforest. Our third beastie is the most gribbulous gribbly. It's the Jaratodus. It's a nasty fishy looking thing, a bit like an overgrown mud skipper. It lives in swamps and uses mud to capture its prey. And it is a pretty solid lump of plastic. I can testify to this as I dropped it when I first took it out of the box and there was no harm done. And then we come to the apex predator, the big boy, or indeed big girl, a miniature that can be used to represent the Diablos or the female Black Diablos, the creature famous for being in the only remotely interesting part of the Monster Hunter movie. The Diablos lurks underground and will react to noise. Think Tremors. And this thing is absolutely huge, bigger even than anything that came in the Ancient Forest box. Such is the scale, some assembly is required. The wings are separate, but they just push into place without the need for glue, and they can be easily separated if you want to store the monster back in the box afterwards. Facing these gargants are the brave or foolish hunters. In this set you get the Switch Axe Hunter, who can seamlessly shift between axe and sword mode to balance power with mobility. This miniature emphasises one issue I do have with the designs in this game. What looks cool in motion in a video game doesn't always have the same impact when translated into a static miniature, and I do feel some of these hunters, particularly this one, look a bit dopey. Next is the Charge Blade Hunter, who can build up a powerful charge to unleash when it's needed most. He has a ridiculously large shield, matched only in size by his ridiculously large sword. Probably my favourite from this set. Then we have the Insect Glaive Hunter, who can, apparently, command kinsects to harvest extracts from the monster. I don't really know what that entails. He is a very mobile fighter though. As you can see, there is a bend in his glaive, but that is something that will easily be resolved with a hot water treatment. Finally, we have the Heavy Bowgun Hunter, who is obviously a ranged specialist. This hunter's weapon can use different types of ammunition, so you can tailor attacks to capitalise on the weaknesses of your current prey. While I think the hunter miniatures are okay, they don't do much for me, and they obviously pale in comparison to the awesome monsters, which are the showstoppers and the biggest draw, quite literally. Having different hunters and monsters in the box does mean all of the monster reference cards, forge reference cards, weapon cards and armor cards are different between the two core sets, but ultimately, whichever set you buy, the overall experience is going to be the same. Which begs the question, which is the best set to start with? I think if you are a fan of the video game series, that question is going to be easy to answer. You are going to pick the set that has your favourite monsters in. And if you don't have a favourite monster, you are going to pick the set that has your favourite hunter weapon options. If, like me, you don't really know much about the universe, you are probably going to be drawn to the set that you find most interesting in terms of monster design. Wildspire Waste, I would say, is the more unusual set, or the most show-offy set. The hunter weapons are a bit more outlandish. Things like the transforming Switch Axe and Insect Glaive feel a bit more specialised and tied to the Monster Hunter world. Meanwhile, the Hunters of the Ancient Forest can take a greatsword, dual blades, a sword and shield, or a bow, things that are more instantly recognisable for the average layperson. Similarly, Wildspire Waste offers the more unusual monsters. Baroth with its cliff face head, the Puke Puke looking like a hybrid of frog, lizard and butterfly, the Jaratoda slopping around in the mud, and then the Diablos, the largest of all the monsters and a creature that has massive wings yet travels underground. By contrast, Ancient Forest gives you the Great Jagras, which is a big lizard, the Tobai Kadachi, which is arguably the most unusual of the forest dwellers, the Anjanath, which looks like a T-Rex, and then the Rathalos and Azure Rathalos, which is a dragon by another name. So, do you want something that most players can easily relate to due to its familiarity, or do you want something that feels unique to the Monster Hunter universe? Or do you go for option 3? Get both. Purchasing both core sets is a significant investment, and admittedly there is some duplication across the sets. Getting both would mean you end up with extra tokens and health trackers you don't need, and although the two double-sided boards have different art, they are functionally identical. But there are several very good reasons why it might be worth the splurge. The hunters and the monsters in each set are cross-compatible. Adding the extra hunters is incredibly easy. You simply select from the 8 available options at the beginning of your campaign and play as normal. Adding the extra monsters isn't much more complicated. When you start your campaign, you will have a choice of 2 assigned quests, either the Baroth from the Wildspire Waste or the Great Jagras from the Ancient Forest. After completing that first quest, you can then select any assigned quest for any of the monsters from either core set, or an investigation quest for any of the monsters for which you have already completed an assigned quest. Completing a full campaign involves defeating a 4-star monster, and if you have both core sets, you have 4 to choose from: the Rathalos, the Azure Rathalos, the Diablos, and the Black Diablos. You are doubling the number of win conditions and dramatically increasing your options at every stage of the campaign. Of course, all those extra options are going to require more time, so you do get to add 20 days to your campaign timer. Other than that, you play the game in exactly the same way. One really fun thing is that by combining the two core sets, you unlock the full potential of both, gaining access to components you wouldn't otherwise use. For example, the Wildspire Waste contains weapon upgrade cards that can only be gained by defeating monsters from the Ancient Forest. Here you can see the Forge reference cards for the Switch Axe. If you play with just the Wildspire Waste, you can upgrade the Switch Axe with any options on the Wildspire Waste card. You can end up with a Perfected Alloy Axe, Power Smasher, Baroth Grinder, or Axe Semper Tyrannis. But by hunting monsters from the Ancient Forest, you also gain access to the Flammenbale, Gnashing Flammenbale, Rathalos Axe, and Wrathbringer Axe. And yes, I am aware I am probably mangling the pronunciation of most of this stuff. Having those extra options is exciting, and of course this is a two-way street. Every hunter in the Ancient Forest also has upgrades that are only obtainable through defeating monsters found in the Wildspire Waste. In effect, fighting different monsters doesn't just give you new challenges, it gives you new ways to upgrade and enhance your favourite hunters, new ways to play with old favourites. You gain brand new gameplay experiences and new reasons to replay the campaign trying new strategies. Ultimately, getting both core sets means you are getting more. It doesn't change the way the game plays, it just makes the game even bigger. It unlocks the full potential of each individual set and grants a wider range of choices. And of course, it gives you more of those large-scale miniatures, which is going to be incredibly appealing to fans of the series as well as painters. Having two core sets also helps to alleviate one small bugbear I do have with the game. If you are playing a campaign, over time you will upgrade your hunter's equipment. As a result of this, you will remove some cards from your attack card deck and add better cards. These long-term changes make it more difficult to play a pickup game while you have a campaign in progress, as you will need to make sure you have a detailed record of your current deck before sorting the cards and resetting them. Having two core sets at your disposal means it's possible to run 2 consecutive 4-hunter campaigns, or you can play one-shots using any of the characters that are not part of your current campaign. As sorting out and tracking the cards was one of my least favourite parts of the game system, I thought that was a nice little bonus. Really, there is a lot to recommend owning both sets, with the obvious downsides being the cost and finding the space to house 2 of these massive boxes. But I think I am going to leave it there for now. Thank you so much to Steamforged Games for providing this copy of Monster Hunter World Wildspire Waste for review. If you would like your own copy, this core set has recently been restocked at Steamforged Games, and I will include a link to their online store in the video description below so you can check it out. And do remember, if you would like to know more about the gameplay, there is a link to my previous review in the description too. Why not let me know your favourite Monster Hunter beastie in the comments section, and as always, if you like the video, please consider pressing the like button. If you really like the video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so, and hopefully, I'll see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone, bye bye.